Welcome everybody to another episode of Dave's Movie Dailies. So today is what, Saturday? More it's actually Saturday afternoon. Here at home chilling and about to talk about the latest movie. Today's movie would be Y2K. This movie was released about what? A few months ago? I want to say no, around December, before New Year's. This movie was one of my most favorite movies of the year. Unfortunately, it did not hit it big at all. It had a small run in the theaters. It was an A24 film, which to me, I'm always telling you guys, A24 has some of the best movies out there. This was a sci-fi horror comedy. It starred Rachel Zegler, who everybody hates right now. She's the girl who plays Snow White in the upcoming Snow White movie. That she goes weird, about guys chasing girls. I don't know about the whole Snow White story. Then you got Jaden. I forget his Jaden Martell, who was in the movie It, the Pennywise movie and stuff. You had Julian Dennison, who was in Deadpool 2. He's the big chubby bad guy or bad kid or whatever that ends up joining Deadpool in the Deadpool movie. You have Lachlan Watson. I know that you guys see me looking down. It's just these names are out there. Lachlan Watson. She was in Chucky, the TV series, and the last character that you see in the movie, which comes halfway into play. Just to let you guys know, this is gonna be spoilers. So I'm giving you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go watch the movie and come back. Obviously, it's not in the theaters anymore. It had a small run. I'm pretty sure you can find it somewhere on a streaming site. It's called Y2K, year 2000. Okay, Y2K. So yes, spoiler alert. You've been warned. The surprise character that ends up joining the team, his name is Fred Durst, who also was a famous rock rapper in the early 2000s. He was known as Limp Bizkit. He had a bunch of hits. I remember growing up and experiencing him and all these other things, especially Y2K. I remember Y2K being like, it's kind of like a pandemic. It was kind of like a pandemic where everybody thought that when the year 2000 dropped, that the computers wouldn't know the difference of the year 2000 or like the turn of the century, like 1900 or another thing. And they thought that the computers would go back to we would go to like a new dark age because everything is run by computers. So around that time when they thought that the year 2000 was going to hit, everybody thought that everything was going to go crazy. It was going to go black. We were going to have everything was go insane. Now, I remember that day specifically. I went to spend New Year's at my mother's old church, and we're sitting in the church waiting for the year 2000 to drop. And when it dropped, nothing happened. But it was like a pandemic. Everybody was haywire, going crazy. Oh my God, there was signs all over the place. Year 2000, Y2K. This was like the biggest thing that everybody thought was going to happen to us. We thought we were going to lose. And to think that years later, after 2020, 21, that's when the real pandemic happened and we got shut down and we got locked up in our houses for a long. So it took 20 years later for that to happen where we actually got a real pandemic. But yeah, that was the whole thought that I lived through that. I remember, I think I was, I forget. I think I was to year 2000. I was probably I was in my teens somewhere. And I remember all that, but nothing happened. So, but this movie is about what if in the year 2000 something actually did happen. So it starts off with these group of teenagers partying and having a good time. The year 2000 is going to happen. They're all excited about this whole Y2K thing, and they're graduating high school, and it's such a fun film. All of a sudden they end up they're at this party having the greatest time of their lives. That kid Jaden Martell, he's like in love with Rachel Zegler, so he's trying to get her attention and all this stuff at this party. All of a sudden the year 2000 happens and the ball drops and everybody's like, oh my gosh, and all of a sudden the machines take over. So the pandemic is that the machines come to life, they become sentient, and they start joining with each other like a CD player and a microwave and a video game system and all that stuff start joining with each other like some type of megazord, and they start murdering people. This is a sci-fi horror comedy, so you're gonna see a lot of gore, you're gonna see a lot of blood and all that stuff, which was honestly, to tell you the truth, very, very entertaining. I laughed and I couldn't believe, like, the music was my era. The stuff that I saw in this movie was my era, you know, LimeWire, downloading music. The movie starts off by some kid downloading music, and that's something that I remember doing as a kid, or I remember having friends who did it for me. I remember listening to the type of music, these type of parties. These are things that in my era, we, sorry, it sounds like I'm old, but yeah, I'm a little older than most people. But in this era, we had fun. We did these things. Nowadays, it's not like that. It's very different nowadays how things are. So the machines take over and they start killing off anybody who's alive because they want to take over the world. This is what this pandemic is all about. So let me see. Sorry. So that's the whole purpose of the movie. It's just these machines taking over, and these humans have to band together to pretty much stop and foil, the machine's plans. They end up I know that Fred Durst does a whole concert type situation so they can put like the first virus, because I remember back in those days viruses were like a big thing. You had to watch out for your computers. I remember there was even a movie called Hackers where these hackers, they just put viruses into like big corporations and made everything go nuts. So that's what this whole thing was about. These people had to band together and find a way to put viruses into these computers to stop the world from being destroyed by these sentient machines that, became alive in the year 2000. So it was directed by Kyle Mooney, and as I started watching and I started looking up the information, I found out that one of the producers was Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill is well known for a lot of his movies. Obviously, Superbad is one of his biggest movies that he did. Now he's like he's always working with Leonardo DiCaprio, doing great movies and all that stuff, but he still has that sense of humor. He was also in 21 Jump Street, the movie 22 Jump Street, and he's been in a lot of hilarious movies. This movie obviously is meant to be a comedy, so obviously you're gonna laugh and you're gonna see a lot of blood and gore because these machines start killing people off. Unfortunately, Rachel Zegler still has a really bad track record with films. She spoke ill about Snow White, and everybody thinks that movie's going to flop. She spoke ill about Shazam! Fury of the Gods. So every movie that she does, she has had something to say. Just recently, she came on saying something about the people who voted for Trump, that we shouldn't have peace or live in comfort because we voted for Trump. So she wished us pretty much a horrible life, or whatever the case. So if you voted for Trump, Rachel Zegler hates you. So the movie had a really bad backlash, especially for her. The movie was hilarious. So I mean, if you obviously aren't going to shell out the money because the movie's out of the theaters by now, if you see it on TV, if you see it like on a streaming site and it's free for you, it's definitely a watch. To me, it's a straight up 10. I love this movie. It was hilarious. I loved the way they portrayed the 2000s, the music, everything that I grew up with. I loved the movie. I was in the theater with like a handful of other people. It wasn't a lot of people. This movie didn't have a big turnout. It was a flop, unfortunately, but it was definitely something to watch. And the reason why it was a flop is it didn't have a big publicity thing in the theaters. I remember seeing a couple of trailers, but nothing that big. But the movie was great. I tell you guys, watch it if you can, especially if you're from my era, maybe from the 80s, 90s, even the 2000s. Did you live through this? If you're a kid, you'll probably get a kick out of it too, but you won't understand much of it because you didn't go through these times. But yeah, definitely a 10, must watch. This has been Dave D. Saint. I go by Dave D. Saint on my other thing. But this has been Dave's Movie Dailies on Y2K. Watch it. And until next time.